All right.
Yeah, I'm not using my headset mic for this. Thank God.
So,
You got your streaming mic up?
Yep.
better base, good
Nice.
mic. All right. Well, we'll kick it off. So, hello, everybody, to what's this, the third live stream?
Yes.
Third. Wow.
My name is Zor, as everybody knows, and I will be the MC for this again. And I will hand it off to Kent.
Okay. Hi. I'm Kent. I'm the artist and co-dev of Chasing Sunsets. If you all don't know, what should I talk about right now?
Did you not get the itinerary?
No, I did not. I didn't. I didn't get anything. I just pretty much wing it.
That's fair.
So,
do you want to tell you what? Kent is just going to introduce himself, and then I will guide him the rest of the way.
There you go. Perfect. All right, I just did an introduction, so
okay. So I guess that would make it my turn. I'm Stoya. I'm the story writer and coder, and also co-developer of Chasing Sunsets. And Kent and I started this project about a year ago, and we've been collaborating on it ever since.
Fuck.
And that's pretty much me.
Why are those images so small?
Yeah, so I fixed that once, and then because I had to make some other changes, I deleted them and then forgot to fix them again. So that one's on me.
Okay.
But I don't know why they came in like that. There's probably 10 total like that.
Oh, do you want me to send you the other ones again, or
No, I'll blow it up in post. So when you guys actually put this online, they'll all be full.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to run this with a goddamn. We're recording really for our voices. Everything else is going to be in post because I don't want like the bottom bar there in the movie either. Because for some reason this app is not overriding this when you max it out.
Yeah.
So. Oh wait, is there like a max? Yes. No, that's not it either. All right, it's just being a bastard.
Okay. What could go wrong?
Yeah, everything apparently. So we got some quick facts coming up, in specific to Chapter 2, obviously. So you've got the itinerary in front of you. Do you want to cover it, or do you want me to cover them?
Sure, I can take a stab at it. So Chapter 2 was roughly the same size as Chapter 1. We kicked out 1,300 renders as opposed to 1,400 for Chapter 1. 7 new characters in Chapter 2 as opposed to 8 new characters in Chapter 1. With the help of our friend and collaborator, Evite, we developed the achievement module and the end of chapter module. Those are the 2 new features that we see in Chapter 2. There were 11 new songs and 2 cameos. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Drifty's game, Leap of Faith, Drifty was kind enough to feature our girl Jay in his most recent update for Leap of Faith. And the timing was such that we were able to kind of integrate that entire cameo timeline into the Chapter 2 timeline for Chasing Sunsets. So if you played Leap of Faith first and then played Chapter 2 of Chasing Sunsets second, everything should have lined up timeline-wise. And then we managed to hit our 90-day dev cycle. That's kind of what we were shooting for, and we got 90 days to the day between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2's delivery. So
that was fun.
Yeah, especially towards the end there.
Yeah. Oh man.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Kent?
No, not really. I mean, I don't really have like a lot of the whatever facts of or stuff like that in my mind right now. But all I know is that
Jay is surprised by this.
What?
Jay is surprised by this.
Yeah. Yeah, I am surprised that we kicked out that many renders. All I can say is like I think this was so far this has been my favorite chapter. With all the new stuff that we added and all the help that we got. So looking forward to some more stuff. I'll be working on chapter 3 today after I clean up after this PC build. So
All right.
looks like a hurricane just hit my place.
You know what? You should have sent a couple pictures. I could have put those in the images.
Oh, I can. Hold on a second. I'll take a picture of my recycling bin. Hold on a second. I'll send it. I'll put it in chat. Hang on.
I'll tell you what, he's
here. He missed his cameo or his shout out.
When you go to do your art integration with the live stream, Zor, we can send you photos of the mess that our PC builds generated, and we can insert a few of those.
sure.
All right, here. Hold on a second. Voice chat. Here we go. Here's what my recycling bin looks like.
Nice.
I've got to clean all that shit up today.
Oh boy.
And I still got to vacuum. I still got to. Oh my god. There's still stuff on.
Did you have
bed.
more than the one leak? And how hard was that to fix?
No, it wasn't that hard.
Did it require a new tube?
No. What happened was this: as I was putting the fluid in the reservoir started leaking.
Oh no!
So yeah, so I was just like, oh shit, what happened? So when I bought this new reservoir, you couldn't find the actual res pump combo. So I just bought the res, and I was just like, I'll just use my old pump. So as I'm putting it together, there's an O-ring that goes on the reservoir to the pump. Well, that was misplaced, and I didn't know where it was. And the way they had it showing in the install instructions, it was kind of like, odd. So I took apart my old res, and I looked at it, and I saw where the O-ring was supposed to be. So I took it all apart, put the O-ring where it was supposed to be, and then put it all together, and it was fine. So
going back, Zor, to the 2 cameos, I see Drifty's actually joined us. So
yay!
First of all, big thank you to Drifty for showcasing Jay for us, and we got a lot of good feedback from our supporters and patrons on that. We also saw some people that joined us on Patreon who specifically mentioned that they had seen Jay and Leap of Faith, and that had kind of inspired them to check out our game. And so that was just a huge boost for us. And it's really cool to see the development community kind of helping each other out like that. And
Yes.
then a more subtle cameo occurs later in the game. You'll see Captain Oliver on the yacht, and in a lot of ways, he's inspired by our friend and mentor, who's also in this chat, the Naughty Captain, who is the developer for Summer Scent, and that is certainly one of the 2 games that really inspired me to begin development and lean up and wear Kent down until he was willing to join me on this little bit. So in a lot of ways, Chasing Sunsets is the spiritual descendant of Summer Scent. So anyway, I just wanted to close the loop on that.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Custom water loop.
Yeah.
So did you guys experience any challenges that really stick out as the difference between what you maybe struggle with in the prologue or chapter 1 versus any struggles and challenges in chapter 2?
I can take a first stab at that.
Go ahead.
So the first thing that we did differently this time was we wrote the chapter out and did art for the chapter out of order. In the past, it's always been sequential. We do one scene, do the art, do the next scene, do the art. This time we decided to tackle the most difficult scene first. So the airport scene we did like right away, but then we went straight to the Terra and Jay scene at the end because we knew that was going to be the most development effort, and we wanted the scenes to become gradually easier as we got closer to our release date, so we weren't feeling under the gun. And that worked out really well for us, but I don't think Kent really had a very good idea on how how the story all came together until relatively close to release, because because I had to sew all the bits together, and that was a little bit he had to have a lot of faith in me in making sure that happened. The other thing that was a little bit more challenging was the two new features that we added, the end of chapter summary and the achievement system, had to be retrofit through the prologue and through chapter 1. So in addition to adding new features to chapter 2, we had to go back and kind of weave all of that into the script for chapter 1 and chapter 2 and make sure that we didn't break save integrity. And so that was a bit of a challenge. We migrated to RenPy 7.44 off of 7.35. So there was a bit of a challenge there, but it also made some features necessary, or some it made some features that were necessary for the end of chapter summary to work properly available to Evite when he was doing the development on that. Unfortunately, it also makes the game no longer run on Windows XP. So we got a little bit of feedback from some people who were sad to realize that they couldn't play the newest chapter on their older computers. We switched to 4K for our render output and downsize now. We did that largely to mitigate noise in darker scenes, as well as to make the effect of our denoising process less visible after the resize. We're still working through some issues with that. We definitely saw some scenes in the airport where the depth of field and the denoising process don't play very well together. So I know that's one of the things that Kentyrr and I are kind of looking at ways to mitigate. And then the last challenge I would say that we ran into was we initially moved the release of the game for our lowest tier patrons out a week, because our thought was that all of our leaks on release day had so far come out of the $1 tier. And we were just trying to give our patrons a little bit more exclusivity before it leaked, but it didn't have any real effect. It still leaked within an hour and a half of release. So we rolled that policy back and ended up releasing to everybody on the same day.
Yeah, and going back to the challenges of doing the art out of order, that was kind of jarring for me because it's like I didn't even know the story at that point. I was just like, well, what happens here? Why is this happening? Why am I doing this? So I was getting kind of confused with it, but I think I got a handle on it.
That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to continue the out of order development process going forward. I don't know that we actually gained any time or saved any headache by having Kent do the hardest scene first. So we'll reevaluate as we move forward.
Cool.
So
next.
So how has the reception for the update been?
Oh, fantastic. We've been seeing, very positive reviews from our community here and on the other community. People's minds have changed of when we left chapter 1, people were not liking Jay at all. Like they were like really pissed off. They're like, fuck this girl, I don't like her anymore. And then we kind of turned them around on this chapter, which is really good.
I would definitely agree with that for the most part. I mean, there are some people that are really dug in, and that's okay. The game has options for that reason. But there have been generally positive feedback. The achievement feature was a much bigger hit than we expected. I was really surprised, kind of following feedback on other sites. People asking each other how to unlock a specific achievement, and seeing the walkthroughs come out on getting all of those unlocked. So originally, I envisioned the achievement feature as kind of a joke. It was going to pop up whenever you unlocked a kink. So, if in chapter 1 you slept with Linda, you would get the, unlock the anal sex kink tag, and that was going to be, instead of achievements, it was really going to be kind of a kink unlock. But it was so fun to kind of write the descriptions and whatnot that it became a more general achievement system, and one that I think if we end up moving to Steam will be relatively easy to integrate over there as well. In raw, in I guess raw numbers, we've seen roughly a 28% increase in patrons since the release of Chapter 2. So to us, not seeing the number go the other way is always a win. It's we see it as a metric of interest, and so having that go in the right direction after our third content update, always a good feeling.
Yeah. Very good feeling. So fall asleep.
No, I was just making sure I didn't want to cut one of you guys off.
Oh, that's all right.
Anything you want to share that we can look forward to in chapter 3?
So the title for chapter 3 is Hide and Seek. It's going to build on what Mallory's discovery at the end of chapter 2 means, and also take kind of a look at what George has in mind for vetting Alex and Jay for the challenge ahead, as far as taking over the business, to see to get them introduced to some of the decision making that they're going to have to do to be successful at that, and also to kind of evaluate them to determine whether they can even work together, or if either of them are up to the task. Our expectation is that this is going to be a far more balanced chapter, because chapter 1 was really Mallory's chapter, her introduction. Chapter 2 was Jay's reintroduction. Her childhood behavior was the old busted, and chapter 2 was the new hotness, and so that was
Very
kind of yeah.
Very hot.
All I can really say about chapter 3 is that nobody dies. We will be introducing Lisa. There are multiple paths through the chapter. The current choice map looks at 3 different paths. And based on decisions that you've already made, some choices may be blocked off to you. So we'll do our best to present that in the choice menus. If you've played through the prologue, if you didn't have sufficient trust with Jay, when you end up fighting with Christian during the graduation party, you'll notice that the option to square up with him is grayed out. So that's going to probably be the method by which we let you know that a choice is blocked off to you. So you know that there would have been a choice there if you had made other decisions.
I think that'll make it more fun.
I think so too.
Because when you see the achievement hunters and when they say like, wait a minute, I couldn't get this one. What do I gotta play? What do I gotta do? And then they go back and play it, and it's just kind of fun.
Yeah. I think that's probably all I really want to say right now, because there's almost anything I say is a spoiler at this point. So,
is there anything that you've kind of set as personal goals for chapters coming up? Things that you'd like to accomplish?
Well, I know that from a feature perspective, what I would like to see in the next chapter is a named or intelligent save feature, because as the paths become more diverse, it would be really good for people to be able to make a save and clearly label or be able to identify what save that is. So I know that there's already a mod out there that allows saves to be named, but I'm going to be looking at that from a more I'm going to look at that as a more robust feature. I would love to be able to put more information in that save by default, and then allow the the player to make a note with it. There have been a couple of requests from players to make the phone application something that doesn't just pop up, but something that they can summon and review the historical conversations with other characters, or maybe try to initiate a conversation that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I'm looking at that, and I'm trying to kind of go through what that would look like, when it would be useful, or if it would simply be a historical record that they could pull up and look at without having any ability to interact otherwise. But that's one of the things I would like to be able to do is to make the phone application a little bit more interactive. And then for me, the big goal is a Steam release. So when we hit a critical mass of content, I know that Kent and I would both love to see this released to Steam.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting, platform to put it on.
And then I know Kent is really, really bullish on getting animations mastered.
Yeah, that's going to be my bane right there.
Mm.
That's like I said, it's man.
I will. Here's the challenge for us with animations, really, and what it comes down to is we have a 90-day development cycle that we try to hit, and so the ability to take time out to learn a new technique or master something like that is relatively limited, especially since art tends to be the long pole item. So if Kent is coming home from work and doing 30 to 40 render poses a night, it's finding a place to squeeze that learning in. And so I totally understand why this is something that isn't coming easily to us. I know that once he does get his head wrapped around it, he's going to be very good at it. It's just a matter of finding the time and maybe budgeting some extra time into a development cycle at some point that is dedicated to picking up the talent. So
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So
Now,
Kent
I'm not scared of them. It's just like you said, it's to try to fit it in when I'm working 8-hour day, then try to get stuff for the game. That's where it lies.
and there's always the potential at some point where this does become one or both of our primary jobs, and then that completely changes the equation on how much time we have to spend on development. So it's just one of those things we'll have to play by ear.
Yeah.
Also, render time for running an animation for 12 to 18 hours when you're also trying to render stills.
Right.
have to budget for an animation box.
Right.
Yay.
Another hard loop for Kent.
Yeah. Can't wait.
So, speaking of Kent, is there anything about the art aspect of Chapter 2 that you would like to expand on?
I think the biggest thing for me for this chapter was I want to say it wasn't like an epiphany, but it was just more of getting more information about how to light scenes better, how to do nighttime scenes. That is my main, I guess, thing that I have to work on is lighting a night scene. And I'm trying to lean on a lot of artists and a lot of other devs to try to figure out, how to do that. Like, what have they done? What are their techniques, and try to learn from them. One big contributor to this was Ocean of Summer's Gone. I talked with him a couple of times, and I kind of gave him the idea of like, here's the scene that I want to do or want to try, but I can't light it right. It just doesn't seem right. Because if if you really look at a lot of my images, I try to put it in a scene of lighting that's what would it be like in real life. It's not really cinematic. It's just what you would see.
So you're going for realism versus what would
Right.
look like in a movie.
Right, exactly. And the scene in question that I brought to Ocean's attention was when the MC goes and talks to Mallory on the boat. So I showed him an image. I said, "Hey, this is the scene I'm trying to do. Um, how would you like this scene with a full moon on the sea on a boat?" And then he kind of just told me first, what is the scene, you know, uh what is it conveying? Is it romantic? Is it serious? Or go from there. And I just told him it was a serious, slightly romantic scene. And I showed him an image and he says, "Okay, do this, and then try this and try that." And then the scene came out great. And I was like, wow, looks 10 times better. Thanks. And he was like, no problem. And I kind of went about that through the rest of the chapter, try to figure out what's the mood of the scene, and then just playing around with the lighting and try to figure out how to, um, you know, get the lighting to reflect correctly and to look real. So that's been my main challenge and what I want to work on.
Same question to you then, Stoya. Is there what stood out from like the writing perspective for you in chapter 2?
So this was a chapter I've been looking forward to for a long time because I've said before that fiction is the tacit agreement between the writer to manipulate somebody's perceptions and emotions, and the willingness of the reader to be manipulated. And so I knew very well that there were going to be a lot of salty motherfuckers after that cliffhanger in chapter 1.
Oh God, yes.
And this was something that Kent and I collaborated fairly close on. And so I was anxious to show that the part of storytelling is is subverting expectations, and you can't put a an element in the story and then have it not be what it appears to be, because the concept is Chekhov's gun. You can't picture a gun in a scene and not use it later on in the screenplay. And so there was no way that it wasn't going to be Christian on that helicopter, right? But it was fun to let everybody run with it. And there were some dirty tricks that I used in order to convey that it was absolutely Christian and that Jay was being vindictive, like the look that she gives the camera at the end of the lawyer visit in chapter 1 when Alex leaves the office. So this was all designed to reinforce the idea that Jay was just being a vindictive bitch. And so to me, it was really kind of fun to subvert that expectation. And but also what I've really enjoyed is people have been very focused on points. And this game was never meant to be min-maxed. It was always designed that you could still get a very good ending without maximizing the points with anybody. But to start layering in secondary impacts to decisions beyond the points. So what a lot of people probably don't realize is that there are 4 ways to get Christian off the yacht in chapter 2, and every one of them has a secondary impact to the story. So whatever choice you make on the boat is going to have choices beyond the points you made with Jay or didn't make with her when you made that decision. It's going that ripple or that'll ripple through the story going forward. It was also a lot of fun to do a free-form conversation when Jay and her brother had a chance to sit down and talk, and to kind of weave a little bit of variation into how that went over with Jay, depending on the order you asked the questions and the amount of emotional intelligence you brought to that discussion. But it wasn't meant to be a science. This, again, it's not designed to be min-maxed. Real human conversation is messy, and we really are gaining and losing points with people when we talk to them every day. And that's what it was intended to reflect, is that even with the best intentions, you can go into a conversation and come out the worse for it.
Oh yeah.
And so,
Real life happened. It happened to me.
yep.
Foot in mouth.
And I hope by the time we get to the end of the game that people realize that okay, you played a perfect game, but what did you miss by trying to do that? My hope is to start building a series of choices that lead to a richer game rather than a perfect one, so that you can enjoy more time with Mallory or more time with Erica or whatever it is, without feeling like you're going to blow up your ending. It's supposed to be a slice of life. Anyway, I think I've gone too long with that one.
That's good. It's content.
All right, ready to move on to Q&A then?
Sure.
All right,
Sure.
question number 1. Jay and Tara, cream pie when?
That question didn't age well.
No.
Yes.
Already delivered, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of was.
It kind of was.
Not at the same time.
Well, it depends. I mean, it was the same time. You can flip between whichever one you wanted cream pied.
That was
So-
actually going back to that scene. That was a really tough scene to do. Just
Like
to try
emotionally or what?
well, that and just the whole switching back and forth, because you have to do double renders for each character. So basically, I had to set Tara up, or Tara, whatever, how you want to call her name, and then save her pose, bring in Jay, put her in the pose, and save her, and keep on going back and forth.
Yeah, that
one took
the
ass. Yeah, that was, but it came out great with his Stoya's magic coding skills.
I did want to comment on that a little bit from an execution perspective, because narratively, that is the hardest needle I've had to thread as a storyteller so far. Because the goal was to portray Tara as really being Jay's friend, and not having a self-serving or overly self-serving approach to that whole thing. And it could have been easily gone the wrong way, where everybody thought Tara was betraying Jay, or that Tara didn't have Jay's best interest at heart, and that she did it all for herself. And but I didn't want it to be entirely altruistic. I wanted there to be just a hint of Tara's real real attraction to the MC shine through. Just not enough to where it overwhelmed the friendship, and so that was a very narrow line to walk.
Yeah.
But that said, this was the worst kept secret in the game. People were expecting this literally from the prologue, and we were telegraphing it from the prologue. If you sucker punch Christian during the fight, Tara's over there rubbing her legs together like a big cricket, and then she rushes out to follow him after he leaves, takes him to the airport, and then clearly in chapter 1, when MC is talking to Tara on the ice,
Erica
on the ice, and Erica asks if her mother was the MC's first. He says almost. So clearly we've been leading up to that since the prologue. This certainly wasn't this wasn't a fan service thing on our part. It was something that Kentyrr and I have been discussing since the fight scene in the prologue.
Yeah. We definitely have to keep it under wraps.
So
next.
Do you think that chapter 3 will take around the same time as chapter 2?
Hopefully.
I hope so too. I will say that this is the most ambitious chapter we've taken on yet. I've posted a blurred vision of the choice tree for chapter 3 in our previews channel. And so we have an awful lot of art to do here, and we have an awful lot of choices that we have to account for. I will say that the writing is immensely more complicated now because there are so many conversation branches that depend on what has been done before. And our hope is that we hit our 90 days again, but if it takes 4 months to do it perfectly or to execute at the same level of quality, then that's what we're going to do. We're not going to rush something out the door just to keep the momentum and interest. We would much rather be remembered for doing the best game that we could.
Yeah. And to give you guys the best experience in the game.
So we're hopeful we'll hit 90 days, but it's not a promise. We're just doing the best we can to continue to hit it.
Do you plan on bringing up the 3 places in Africa that Alex visited again, or was it just a throwaway line?
A little bit of both. So we've already seen 2 of the places. We've seen Dahiba in Tunisia. We've seen the pyramids in Egypt. The 3rd location is in South Africa. That's going to be a place that David and Alex went surfing. So that'll probably come up in either story or flashback later. However, I don't know that we're going to go back to the pyramids or to Dahiba very much. So, but yeah, we'll certainly see the third location referenced.
Dahiba, oh, that was brutal. Making that scene. Oh man.
Also planned since the prologue, by the way.
Yeah.
When I told Kentyrr about this, he immediately started putting together renders back in the prologue and saying, "This is what I think it's going to look like, when David dies and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, too soon."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
you weren't ready for those images that I made.
I was not ready.
And you can see one of the images. It's actually that's scrolling through here, where you see Alex looking back in the plane, whatever like that, and that was the 2 scenes that I made. I was just kind of like a kind of like a rough draft. It was just him in a box, and I showed that to Stoya, and he wasn't ready. He was just like, "I got to step away for a minute."
So on that note, I wanted to give a shout out to our friend Cato,
Yes.
who really he really helped us with the research on that scene. So the berets that the operatives are wearing are the correct color. They have the correct patch on them for that unit. They're carrying the correct weapons that unit would be using. So the only real artistic liberty we took with that was Kent added Stone Fox logo pins to the ammo pouches. But yeah, we really had to lean on Cato for some help in kind of putting that together. Nothing's perfect. The assets limit us to a certain extent. But I just wanted to point out that we do go the extra mile and try to make sure that the art matches as closely as possible the situation we're trying to portray. In fact, the Dahiba scene was originally going to take place in southeastern Turkey, but we had so much difficulty finding town assets that looked like a southeastern Turkish town that it forced us into another location. So, we don't want to incorrectly portray any particular part of the world, and that's actually one of the reasons that Tonalu, the island that they're on, is fictional, because we didn't want to get painted into a cultural or architectural corner with how we portrayed the island. So
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any other games planned after Chasing Sunsets?
we have proof of concepts. We have some ideas, but we want to focus primarily on finishing this one and getting this one out the door. We don't want to be those devs that start 2 projects and then they leapfrog each other on delivery or whatever else. This this is where our passion is right now, and we do have. If we do a second game, we are looking at Terra being a primary character in that one.
Which would be kind of difficult, going from this to that, writing for a male protagonist and going to a female protagonist to try to make sure that we don't like objectify her as like, a whore, pretty much, So
Yeah, that's definitely the difficulty with because our audience is primarily male. Though I'm pretty impressed with the number of female patrons that we have, at least based on the email addresses on the Patreon page. It feels like we have a fairly good representation of a female audience, but uh, the the trick is to really make a story interesting without making it a slutification or because we care about our characters and we don't like portraying them in ways that make them not really relatable or able to be respected. At the same time, it doesn't have to be a female protag game. It could be a dual protag game, or she could be the principal love interest in a male protag game. We simply haven't decided on what it's going to look like yet.
So why does the teen male character smile in Mugshot when his experiences aren't very nice?
Oh, wow, I don't know what to do with that one.
Yeah,
the
I'd fix it up as best I could. I'm
okay.
guessing.
I'm wondering
Why
if he's
does he
talking about the
smile?
avatar.
Oh, that could be.
Is it the avatar, do you think? Or I'm Kent.
Oh, well, they know my name now.
Yeah, right.
Oh well. Hi everybody.
I'll censor it at least in the re-release.
All right.
In some of the images, those were happy times, I think. If you look at the images, say like from Sarah's desk, it's got the MC and Jay kind of doing a piggyback ride. Well, that was a fun time. You know, so there, yeah. So he's still a happy kid, but there's just some aspects of it that's the bad parts, is or what you're seeing, and like to see him develop. What bad things are getting him between those happy times.
I'll take a broader swing at it, Zor, and say that maybe what the question pertains to is the fact that we have basically one expression for all the avatars. We didn't opt for the path that, say, Power Vacuum did, where the avatar changes their facial expression depending on the mood of the line being delivered or whatever. And I think that was simply picking our battles and spending our development time where we had it, where it made the most sense. Because in exchange for not having avatars that are wearing the clothes that are visible on the screen, or having the facial expression that goes with the line being delivered, you'll notice that our characters aren't wearing the same clothes every scene like they are in a lot of games. They change outfits almost all the time. Kent is extremely fastidious about trying to make sure that they have a rotating wardrobe and that they're not always appearing the same in the rendered art.
Why do you got to use a $5 word there? Can you just said he's anal?
I could have. Hey, and I'm not the master of $5 words. That's Stu. In any case, that's kind of where we decided to spend the development effort. I mean, you see Jay in a dress there that when she was in jeans the scene before, and then she's wearing PJs when she goes into the MC's room to read the diary. MC is a little bit more difficult to clothe because that's literally the only shirt that looks good on him. So we just changed the color on the shirt a lot. But we do make an effort to make sure that there's that there's a sense of variety in how they appear in any given scene.
Yeah, and going back to the whole wardrobe thing, when your characters have a lot of morphs, the clothes are a lot of the clothes are not made for morphs. They're made for just general body, general, Genesis 8, Genesis 3, without any morphs. So that's why, you look at some promo images, they look great. But if you get like Alex in like one of those outfits, the shirt is gonna be like plastered to his abs, and it's not gonna look good at all. So yeah, so we have to make do with what we have. And that's why I just kind of change the colors of his shirt that actually looks good on him.
Okie
Hopefully,
doke.
we got an answer to that question in there somewhere.
Do you plan to introduce more in-game mechanics like conversation hubs?
Yes. So in Chapter 3, we'll see something similar to the conversation hub that's actually an action hub, where the order in which you perform things will matter. So that's very similar to the conversation hub mechanically. There was also the thought that in Chapter 4, not in Chapter 3, that we do a very basic free roam where you have choices in how you execute your day. You'll have the things that you have to do, but then you'll have an option for some elective actions. Do you want to go back to the yacht? Do you want to go to the beach? Do you want to go to the bar? But that involves adding a time element or some other method of forcing you to choose how you want to spend a section of your day that is going to require a little bit more development time from me. So I do intend to add some more complexity into how a day can be played out starting in Chapter 4.
Will we see more of Hank?
Yes, we will see. We will see more of Hank from a distance. I don't know that we'll see him in person again, but Erica is certainly keeping up on how Hank is doing since he's been reintegrated with his pack, and she will update the main character from time to time.
More selfies.
Will we ever meet the barback in Walter's bar?
Probably not. He was just kind of a background character, a flavor character. We will see Walter again, but I don't know that we'll see Angelo.
He was pretty much just an off-character name.
Yeah, he was
Off-scene
just there for flavor. Yeah.
All right. So the villa signed over to the MC. Is that location going to play a major role in the future? And will Jay kick crazy Fiona's ass when they find her there?
So I think I've said before, Fiona is kind of my outlet for letting my freak flag fly. She's kind of a character that Kent isn't terribly invested in, so I can
like
make her. But I can make her as big a freak as I want to without you throwing saying nope,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. So she's kind of my outlet for some of my kinks, and so I really envision Fiona being more comic relief as the game progresses than really a major source of conflict. As far as the villa, that was always going to be something that reminded MC of David. It was it was why MC was still in Sicily after David was dead. That's how he was avoiding coming home, was he had a place to stay that he wasn't paying for. And that's one of the things that I've fallen short on in my writing, because one of the things that I see frequently in the critiques of Alex is that, you know, he's a spoiled rich kid who's just been bouncing around on his parents' dime, and they've been paying for his plane tickets and everything else. And that's not really the way it is in my head canon. And there's really no way to directly get that from the script the way it's written. You know, in my head canon, Alex has actually just survived on a $75,000 trust fund that was set aside for his college, and he and David had to get odd jobs wherever they went in order to continue, because $75,000 isn't going to go very far over 5 years on international travel.
Yeah.
And so it's implied in a couple of things the MC says, like the only reason he went to the concert in Mongolia was that it was free. And I intend to put
Sorry.
I intend to put more flavor into that as Jay and Alex talk, where Jay's going to get a feel for how hand to mouth they were really living, and how unimportant money really is to Alex.
We good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Has the MC moved on from the Christian incident, or has Christian learned to wear less body spray, seeing as the MC didn't smell him on that walk?
You never
Well,
know.
Whether the MC has moved on from the Christian incident or not is largely up to the player. That's why there are 4 options on how you eject him from the boat. The goal for us is that the player in the present has agency. He can control how Alex reacts and responds and matures or doesn't in the present timeline. The only time that he's really kind of forced in these situations is historically, if we're going back in a flashback to the prologue or to the events that led up to them being in Tanalu. But my intention is that you know, the player is ultimately going to decide whether they've moved on from that incident or not. As to the lack of body spray, let's just say that that the hatchet body spray is popular in Tanalu. It's the last country on Earth where it still sells well, and so you can use your imagination as to whether it's just everywhere, and so Alex just hasn't picked it out, or if it's in such high demand that Christian simply hasn't been able to replenish his supply.
Nice.
I feel kind of attacked. I used to wear that shit.
I have no doubt.
Let's see. Where were we? Replaying the game again from the beginning, and I noticed that Jay eyebrows are black. So the question, is that for some reason or just for aesthetic?
Good question.
I can actually temporarily answer that because changing eyebrows sucks.
Yeah.
I've done it. It sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's basically it. It's just the morph and the skin that was used for Jay. That was it. She is kind of like an enigma when it comes to that, because people ask, oh, is she a true redhead or is she not? Why is she so tan? All that stuff. It's just, that's the way Jay was made in my eyes, and that's what we went with. And I just didn't want to change it from that point. So
I thought early on we actually played around with Jay's eyebrows, and it just didn't look right. It just
didn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the stereotypical Irish ginger red hair either. So you can actually, I mean, look at like some blonde girls, natural blonde girls, their eyebrows aren't blonde. The same thing can happen for redheads. With my redhead, she ended up kind of auburn, and I eventually played with it, got her hair the way I wanted it with the specific hair asset. But then Bert had pointed out the eyebrows, and I was like, there is actually a tool out there, Kent. I don't know if you've seen it. That's, you know, it's supposed to do what we want, but it doesn't do it very well. So when I changed Bobby's eyebrows, I literally threw her into Photoshop, did some tweaking, or threw her
mats.
Thank you, into Photoshop, and did it that way. And I actually only did one because the transparency one didn't ultimately end up needing it. But if you were to zoom in, it would really just look like somebody spray painted a dash over her stuff. So I have to be careful of getting too close, but from a distance, it looks fine. So I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but we'll see. But yeah, no, I feel you guys' pain on that one.
And I
Yeah,
also think that the way Jay looks is, she has a signature look. And to change that, like, even if it's just to give her red eyebrows or whatever like that, it wouldn't look right to me. So I don't know what I was, how to say, I don't know what I was thinking when I made her. But it was what I had to work with. I didn't want to, you know, do the, typical Irish or, redhead with light skin or fair skin or whatever like that. It was just a character that I wanted to make, and I thought that looked fantastic. So, and that's why we went with the regular eyebrows and never changed them. Shut up about the 10%.
I don't even want to go into that one. Let us see. Where the fuck was I? There it is. Will there be any sort of tasks or mini games for MC or J to do as part of their daily tasks for George?
TBD. If we're going to gamify something, it's got to be something that's going to not take away from the experience of enjoying the story. Generally speaking, I look at games that have successfully integrated mini games, like being a dick and come inside. I thought that if we could come up with something like the sketch game and come inside that was so closely tied to the story that it didn't take away from it, um, I I would love to do something like that. But I don't want to put something in there as just filler or something to take time. Um, we have a story to tell. We have 9 total chapters to do it, and I feel like we're going to run out of runway. So um, we'll just we'll play it by ear.
Now I want you to make the sketchbook to piss Ugu off.
Sketchbook was amazing. It was so cool. It's hands down the coolest mini game I've ever seen. It was frustrating. You had to have extremely good reflexes to do it, but how neatly integrated into the game it was. I get inspiration from other devs all the time, and I haven't met TTLL, but or spoken with him, but to me that was the most integrated mini game into a Ren'Py VN that I've ever seen, and I was just blown away by it.
Who taught Jay the throat punch, or is she just a natural badass?
She's a natural badass.
Yeah, she's natural. Well, I mean, you also have to look at it. She grew up with her father. So I'm sure he taught her a few things, like how to defend herself or whatnot. So I think she's a little bit of, uh, tomboyish. Like, she likes sports. She likes to be active. She likes to, I mean, she can probably, uh, keep up with Alex.
My guess is though that now that she's in pre-med, she would probably opt not to throat punch. We noticed
Yeah.
that she didn't. We noticed she didn't throat punch Christian. If you allow her to do the honors on the boat, she's much more aware of what crushing somebody's thyroid can do. So um, we'll just
Yes.
have to see how she whether she uses her powers for good or evil going forward.
So to both of you specifically called out, was anything in the story inspired by another VN?
So I struggled with this question in the questions for the dev stream this morning because of the way it was written. I think the author of the question was asking if it was based on a specific VN. In this particular case, it was retrieving the past. I think is the because he noticed some similarities in the storyline in the MC, and so wanted to know if we had picked anything from that. And I have to say the answer is absolutely not. There are no elements of this game that are specifically homages to another VN other than I would say Summer Scent in as much as there was a scene in that game that grabbed me emotionally that I wanted to be able to rise to. I wanted to, if if Naughty Captain could hit me in the feels the way he did, that's what I think Kent and I wanted to do. Was we wanted to make a relationship or two or three or whatever they are um, impactful enough that when people were successful at bringing the relationship home, that it felt cathartic to them, that it wasn't just a robotic sex scene. It wasn't, just a bunch of close-ups of Jay's vag or something like that. And then you win, that, um, and hearkening back to being a dick. I definitely remember, when you seal the deal with Josie, that felt like it was earned to me. It felt like it was a relationship that had reached that point where it was organic for them to start having sex. And as a result, I really enjoyed that far more than, the dual blowjob scene in the toilet stall in exchange for a pair of underwear. I mean, it was great for what it was, but there was no emotion to it. It was simply, yeah, dual blowjob. So, in that sense, we wanted there to be an emotional payoff as well as a sexual one for sealing the deal.
Yeah. And for me, about the art, it's just looking at others' art that's inspiring to me. I want to aspire to create something like other devs have created, and I like a whole slew of devs with different art styles. It's where they helped me, find my own, and also talking with other artists. That's been a big, that inspiration for me. It's not just one character or one VN, and our
Uh,
tastes in VNs we have a wide range. I mean, all the way from art, from and story, from Light of My Life, all the way to say Ocean's Game or Phillies or Pinks, Dots, whatever, whoever. It's just that we have a blend of devs that we look at and get inspired by, but nothing that we take from them and be like, okay, want to do that.
I will say it's been really cool watching Kent develop his style because to me it feels different than anything else out there. Really, I'm not saying that it's better or worse or anything else, but it's something that's uniquely Kent. And in a way, I feel like there's been we ride the line between a third person and a first person game because there's so little point of view conversation. You see most conversations from the third person, even though you're technically driving the MC.
Yeah, and we wanted to show that. We wanted to show the MC. Because sometimes you don't see in a lot of these games, it's all first person and you don't know what he looks like. I mean, yeah, you can interject yourself into it and that's great. But I looked at it and saw it was just a lot of the MCs were just plain. They were just a placeholder pretty much. And I wanted to humanize him. I wanted to be like, okay, let's give this guy a look. Let's give this guy a face. So let's do that. And that's what you have today.
Alrighty. Do you guys ever think of adding QuickTime events? I know it's going to be annoying for some, but I quite like to have it. Maybe add an option where you can disable it.
That seems pretty similar to the question before the last one. So I don't have any specific plans for QuickTime events. That doesn't mean that there won't be an opportunity where it makes sense. They seem relatively straightforward and simple to do. But I would want to use it in a place where it made sense, like where timing was extremely important, or something like that. And it wouldn't be a repeatable one. It would be something that would be tied to a very specific scene or action. So we'll keep our eyes open for opportunities to do that, and we'll implement it if it makes sense. And we'll look for feedback from players on whether the inclusion of something like that actually helped the game for them or didn't. Um, One thing that Evite has been extremely helpful with helping us learn as developers, because he's a professional developer, um, is understanding the player experience or the user experience from a point of view that developers, amateur developers like us, might not. And anything that pulls the player out of the moment in the game is something that we have to look at very carefully. That's why you see one placard at the beginning of chapter 2 that tells you that conversations reward emotional intelligence. Because putting anything in the UI or anything on the screen that takes you out of the story is a decision that changes how immersed the person is in what they're reading. QuickTime events have a lot of potential to pull somebody out of the game and into looking at a graph or a widget on their screen. And the more that we can get out of the way of the art and dialogue, the happier we are as developers.
Peanut said she had Rhett's story if asked before, but does she Tourette's? And if so, is it the verbal Tourette's or the physical kind? Oh, Rhett's. Sorry, not story.
I don't want to get too into the weeds on the condition here because I'm not a doctor, but or a psychologist. But Peanut has Rett syndrome, not Tourette's. They're very different things.
Yeah.
Rett syndrome is a form of autism that only affects girls, and it's very rare. And Tourette's is an entirely different animal. So it's not the verbal or the physical kind. It's not Tourette's at all. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. I know that the deeper you get into the weeds on medical and technology, there's always people out there that are smarter than you on it, and you're going to end up saying the wrong thing and offend somebody. In this particular case, there's a very specific reason why Peanut or Amanda has Rett syndrome, and it's related to the story. So we'll see more about that later. Yes, Peanut is returning.
Yes.
Are Mallory and Jay the only two main allies?
This gets asked every live stream, and the answer is the same as it always has been. It depends on what you consider to be an ally. Mallory and Jay are the two principal characters whose opinion of you as the main character has an impact on the end game. But obviously, there is the opportunity to explore intimacy outside of those two. You don't have to be in a relationship with either of those two women at the end of the game to have a good ending. So what a love interest is really fluid here, because this is a different type of game where in most adult games, the object is to secure the affection of one or more women. That's the plot of the game. In this one, it's not. Those are side stories. The main plot is not related to, the relationship between the MC and those ladies at all, at least on the intimate level. It's far more related to how he navigates the story with them. So for what it's worth, I know that's a convoluted non-answer, but those are the two people that their opinion is going to shape the end game for you.
How far in advance do you have the story mapped out, or do you just have a beginning and an end and are currently filling in the middle as you go?
The entire story is already mapped out, but we do. So the answer is actually a combination of both. The steps in between, we have some liberty. We've got some wiggle room. We've got some fog that we can flesh out how we want to. But how we get from the beginning to the end is very much set in stone.
When can we finally bone Erica again? More importantly, will there be Erica anal?
Thanks, Hank. That's we're going to go ahead and throw that one into spoiler territory.
Pocket sand.
So, pocket sand, yeah.
Yeah.
Which country's flag does the sunset sail under?
Malta.
Pole?
Malta.
Yeah, it's Cyprus. I'm sorry. It's Cyprus.
What inspired you both to make this adult visual novel, and how did you both meet each other before you decided to collaborate on this project?
It's one of our favorite stories, right?
Yep.
So
Well, let's start off how we met. First off, I met Stoya while making fan art of a game that we were both playing called The Adventurous Couple. And the female in that game, Anne, I just really liked her exotic look and just wanted to make fan art of her because I thought she was just like I said, she just looked good. And then I started posting it on a couple of my early renders on the Discord, and that's where I met Stoya. He was just like, "Oh, hey, I really like your stuff. You make Anne look really good." And then we kind of just went on from there, and uh, then that's when I started making, Jill renders from being a dick, and that's when I met Panda, and he was a fan, and we just kind of all became friends right there. But that was like the first initial meeting of, and then I found out that Stoya was also on DPC server, and then we just started talking from there.
while Kent was making the fan art for that game, I was talking to the dev and offering to do proofreading. And so I started. This is kind of a funny story. I kind of started trying to make the dialogue a little bit more. At the time I didn't realize how offensive this would have been, but I was trying to, you know, make the dialogue a little bit more cohesive and add a little bit of heat to it and whatnot. So I was kind of talking to the dev at the time, and and that's when I kind of started developing my writing chops a little bit, and I was overwriting terribly. It was awful. Um, so in any case, if you ever play the Adventurous Couple and you play the Spicy mod, the first chapter of that game, somebody took my first attempt at updating the dialogue for that and passed it off as themselves. But then they went on and proceeded to do the remainder of the chapters up to 10, I think, with their own dialogue. So at least they put their own effort into 9/10 of it. It just felt a little weird seeing my own dialogue being purveyed as somebody else's. But in any case, that's when I realized this isn't that difficult to work in RenPy. It isn't that difficult to generate dialogue or to build choice trees. So I started talking to Kent, and I say, "Hey, you got the beauty, I got the brains. Let's bring this together and see if we can do something." And it took a while to convince Kent because neither one of us really were 100% sure that we had the time to dedicate to it, or that we would be successful with it. And so we just started a proof of concept, which was the bar scene at the beginning of the prologue. And based on feedback from our friends Ugu and Panda and a few others, they felt like we had enough of a grip on the technology to give it a go, and so we did.
Alrighty. Let's see. Any Mallory plus Jay content planned without Alex?
Spoiler territory, but I'm going to give that a hard maybe.
Will Tara make an appearance at the Sunset? Any plans for more Tara content?
Tara is her story is done in Chasing Sunsets, and I want to make that 100% clear. She served the purpose that she was intended to serve, and that doesn't mean that we won't see text messages or other conversation with her. Her presence may be felt, but we're not going to see her again in person in game. And I hear Discord blowing up.
Yeah.
Will a phone application be put in if we ever wanted to look at previous messages, which you've kind of covered, I think, already?
Yes. Yeah.
Short answer is yes.
Maybe. Yeah, we're hoping so. Yeah.
If it pans out. Let's see. Will the tasks have a deeper mechanic or grades for finishing them well versus perfectly? Sort of like how you would choose Jay's conversation topics in the right order.
Yeah, and I think I covered that as well. There will be certain, not necessarily tasks, but there will be elements of the game that will have different outcomes depending on how you do them, in what order you do them, or whatever. But we want that to be intuitive for the most part. We don't want people saying, I mean, I've got a very specific idea in mind right now, but it would point towards a spoiler, so I'm not going to go there. But yes, we do expect that leverage just a little bit of emotional intelligence. Think about how you would approach something in real life, and if you've got any success at all in dealing with those circumstances in real life, you shouldn't have a ton of difficulty navigating them in game.
Okay. How many major plot points have you changed when you started the prologue to now?
Just one really big one, and that is essentially Christian's role. Because I think I've said before that our original concept is that Jay and Christian were going to be a couple on the boat, and so were Mallory and Alex. And relatively early in our development cycle, we realized that there was no way that we could pursue that dynamic without making Jay and Alex having a relationship come at the cost of destroying two other ones. So we ended up changing what Mallory and Christian's role was going to be very early in development, so that we didn't get painted into that corner of making the MC and at the time his primary love interest bad guys. So that was a big one. Have we really changed much else?
I don't think we have.
I don't think
That
so
was-
either.
I know that we changed the model of Mallory from the original.
We did. We did, and I've much credit to Naughty Captain's girlfriend on this one. When she was playing our beta, there's something surreal about having one of the people that inspired you, having their significant other playing your game. But she suggested there were originally 3 choices on how do we get rid of Christian on the boat. And she had the idea that it would be cool if there was an option for Jay and Alex to kind of tag team to kick him off the boat. And I couldn't think of a reason not to do that. And then the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And then that's when I added another ripple effect into the game later. So it was really cool in the beta testing to get feedback, especially from a female player, on something that we could do better. And something that didn't cost us any development time to add in.
And that was actually a fun scene.
So fun.
Steam release when?
So we technically have enough content to do a Steam release now, but it still feels too early to me. Talking to other people in the community who've released content to Steam, it feels to me like the time to do that would be sometime after the release of Chapter 3 or Chapter 4. Chapter 4 actually represents the midpoint of the game. So, releasing it as an early release on Steam. I also have questions about whether any of our content would be objectionable to Steam, because there is a potential relationship between Jay and the main character, and that could potentially cause us problems with Patreon. So we just have to make sure that, because I won't sacrifice the story to end up on a platform. So if it turns out that we would have to change the ending to the game in order to make it palatable for Steam, that could be a problem. We'll just have to look at their terms of service and see what we can do. But at the earliest, August, September. Maybe.
In one of your older posts on Patreon, you listed some kinks that are still in the planning stages, e.g. pregnancy, virgin, and adventure. Have these kinks changed in the course of development?
So they haven't really. The thing is that because of the nature of the story, advertising kinks in advance amounts to a spoiler. So we definitely have certain kinks planned. We have some things that we're not going to talk about yet, because it's going to it would spoil potential endings. It would spoil whether certain people are love interests or not. So there's a very specific reason why we're kind of holding the kinks close to the chest. At the same time, we're not going to shy away from them. So obviously, you can take it to the next level with Linda in the cabin, and you know, explore or go where no man has gone before, I guess. Um, but I'm a pretty twisted guy, so I have absolutely no problem letting my freak flag fly. And Kent is in a lot of ways my conscience on that. He's the angel on my shoulder telling me, no, we can't do that. So expect that war to continue as we go forward, and for me to continue to push the envelope, and for Kent to talk me off the ledge, and we'll see what comes out of that.
All right. Well, final question from the list before we go to walk-ons. Specifically for you, Stoya, have you written something before Chasing Sunsets? If I had to guess purely on the writing in the game, I would guess yes. So I'm curious.
No, my sole attempt at writing anything fictional was the first part of the spicy mod, I guess, for the adventurous couple. That was the first time I ever tested my writing chops. I do read a lot, so I've got a good baseline on what constitutes acceptable writing. I will say that one nice thing about the VN genre is that the bar isn't particularly high, so it's easy to appear maybe a little bit better at it than you are, and that might feed into the illusion that I've written before. But I also am keenly aware of the fact that a lot of people are writing English VNs that don't have English as a primary language, and it frequently blows my mind how effective some of the foreign writers of English VNs are. Nope, no background.
And same here. I have
Nope.
no background in 3D art or anything like that. I think the only background that I have is my dad was a good artist, but I never pursued it. I mean, I was able to draw as a kid, but I never took any kind of formal classes of how to learn how to draw characters or anything like that. And that's really about it. But I've only been working with Daz for a year, or just over a year now.
On that note, it's been really cool seeing some people that have been inspired by not just your art but other artists in the the genre, and seeing artists like Wilson Wonka, how far they've come in a relatively short period of time. I mean, when his game comes out, I know it's going to be just stunning to look at. And even looking at the changes in our close community of devs that are now kind of sharing pointers and tips. If you played Single again, CNG has helped us understand animation a little bit better, and we've or Kent in particular has helped CNG understand some other elements of static 3D art a little bit better, and it's showing. So what we're seeing is the level of quality and the output go up. I guess, how's the expression go? A rising tide lifts all boats. It's kind of cool seeing the collaboration between the devs, Ocean helping us with lighting, and then sharing our characters back and forth, giving Jay to Drifty or to Naughty Captain, and kind of seeing how the inspirations that we get from one another reflect in each other's artwork. It's been a really cool thing.
Yeah, it has, and it's good to talk with other devs and other artists to help elevate our craft. And I know with the amount of people that we have talked to, and they're here, uh, seeing their art, and story rise up, and it's a really good feeling that that we all help each other, and I really couldn't ask for anything more because it's so much fun, and it's just good to see a good community like this. We may be degenerates in our own minds, but deep down we're good people.
Fucking speak for yourself, homie.
Okay. Zor's an ass. Except Zor.
All right, so walk-on questions. We only got a couple so far. Make sure if you guys post anything in voice chat, I'm not going to see it. You got to post it into questions. Going off skin color and slight facial similarities, Lisa and Jay related? Question mark.
Yes and no. So they have similar facial morphs, but they're not related in the game at all.
Can Zor do voice acts for George?
I don't know. I thought you'd be more of a Walter, but oh.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's up to you guys. Let's see. How much can we expect the backstory to be brought up? Can we expect the entirety of it?
The backstory.
I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
If they're referring to what's happened before the main story, there is going to be significantly more discovery of things that have happened in the past that are influencing events in the present.
Will we see Jay in a winter sweater?
I mean, I can make one. I mean, actually, we kind of have one that I've already made, but it's not really a winter sweater. I guess maybe like a winter sweater dress. And she's kind of like in a cabin.
What was she wearing in Hank's celebratory photo for his kid's birth? It's just like a sweatshirt, right?
Yeah, sweatshirt. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Like a kind of like an over-the-shoulder type sweatshirt. Yeah, but there is a image that I kind of made. Actually, I'll put it up in voice chat here real quick. And there's Jay. Where are you?
It's also probably the last time we've seen Airwolf, by the way. So if anybody's sick of that helicopter, then you're probably going to be happy to know that.
Mostly
I was waiting on Puggy there.
Mostly Puggy.
Mostly Puggy.
Mostly Puggy.
Yeah. He's still having night terrors from that.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. It's over, Puggy. It's okay.
As much pain and agony as Puggy suffered with the Airwolf model, I think Colt working on custom hair models has probably damaged that friendship.
Here's the image that I made in like a sweater dress.
Got another question for you if you're ready.
Sure.
This one's specifically for you, Stoya. How do you handle writer's block if it hits you, and how often do you make drastic changes to your writing, sentence structure, word choice, etc.? Any tips for an aspiring writer?
So,
rum.
Go ahead.
I said besides using rum.
Oh yeah, rum helps. I will say that I rarely hit writer's block because the story is already plotted. What I do struggle with is trimming down and making the story bite-sized rather than going too far into exposition, or because originally the talk between Jay and Alex, I think I started with 7 questions and I trimmed it down to 4. And my thought process there was that Jay and Alex are going to have several talks over the course of the upcoming chapters, and we need to leave some gas in the tank. We also need the scene to feel self-contained and not like it's, it's not this gigantic blob of dialogue in the middle of an otherwise dynamic story. There are many times where I've written out the dialogue for the chapter and I'm waiting on art, and I'm like, how am I at 2,500 lines of dialogue already and I'm only 2/3 of the way through the chapter? So then I go through and I start trimming, and is this really necessary? Does this move the story forward? As far as the actual dialogue itself, a lot of that shakes out in beta testing. We have an extremely fastidious set of beta testers who have very good input on when a sentence is too awkward or when it runs on too long, if a reference is too obscure, if I use the wrong word, if I didn't capitalize mom when it was used as a form of address. So there are there's a ton of feedback that happens in the beta, and then also as I play through it with Kent before we share it with the beta team, I'm constantly editing things and making them sound like they go together a little bit more naturally. So to me, it's iterative. You start with the broad strokes and then you refine it on subsequent playthroughs until everything feels like it snaps into place.
What's your favorite rum?
Um, ooh, I think right now I'm drinking Pirate a lot right now because it's cheap and it's available at the commissary. So you can get it at military rate.
Oh, nice. Ricky Anal Wen. Ricky, I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Ricky,
Ricky
Erica
Anal
Anal Wen. Yeah,
Okay.
that was actually asked with the when do we finally get to bone Erica again? More importantly, when will there be Erica Anal?
All right, you said pocket
And
sand on that one.
yeah, Pocket Sand.
For Stoya again, I'm trying to create an AVN, but I'm kind of got issues with making my story and such. Do you have any tips on how to start? You could say I've got some bits figured out, but there's a lot of things that are missing. Also, if you could help me later and listen to my story idea, that would be awesome.
To me, the trick is to understand where it's going to end, or how it can end, and then write backwards. And I think I've said it before, but know where you want to go with the story, and be faithful to it. Don't let yourself be pushed around by the people who want a specific thing. And a good example of that is Tara, because there are so many people that really want Tara to be a love interest, and we'd love to be able to deliver that because we like Tara too. We're not holding her in reserve for her own game just to blue ball people. There's just no place for us to fit her into the story in a way that makes sense from this point forward. And so you have to be resilient to the people that demand something that doesn't make sense. But it doesn't mean that you don't take feedback and you don't listen to what's working for people and what's not. So it's a fine line to walk. But as far as developing your story, I would say keep yourself flexible to your own ideas. And by that, I mean, um, we were able to add the scene where Alex and Jay collaborate to kick Christian off the boat. That doesn't change the story in a meaningful way yet. But in my mind, when I made that option, it does make a difference later on something else. And so I have the flexibility to where I can make that alteration later in the story that doesn't fundamentally change the ending. So be rigid, but not too rigid, I guess would be my advice. And think in the shower. That's what I do. A lot of my best ideas happen when I'm in the shower.
You do more
and
than
I'm
that
not,
in the shower. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Nobody's denying that. I'm just saying, find your happy place where you're not sitting in front of the computer screen staring at a wall of text, and take a walk or take a shower or visit an escort, but go someplace where you're happy and where you're not focused on it, and let the ideas come to you naturally.
For Kent, do you have any advice for guys like me just starting out on DAZ who potentially want to make an adult visual novel? I think I heard you say that you had no prior experience with 3D software before DAZ and making Chasing Sunsets.
That's correct. As I said earlier, I think the best advice I can give somebody is just really look for a lot of tutorials. That was the first thing. Like look online. There are several people on YouTube that have very good tutorials of how to start or give a general idea of DAZ. And you can, I mean, hell, you can even do the walkthrough that the DAZ software gives you. It's pretty rudimentary and basic, but yes, that's what it's supposed to be, and it gets your feet wet. I looked at several YouTube channels, Thundorn Games, WP Guru, and Parme was another one. They'll have, like I said, great ideas, great, they try to keep it simple. and easy to understand. I know that I have not I've only touched the surface of DAS. I don't know the whole ins and outs of the program. There's a lot more that I have yet to learn, and I'm just like every day is a new day in that thing. I would also recommend really study lighting. Lighting is the biggest thing in making a render.
I'd study photography too.
Yeah, that's another thing. And photography is another big thing, is to know how to do like the 3-point lighting system, how to composite an image, or compose an image, really, set it all up. Just you don't need to go again. You don't need to go into big, or jump in the rabbit hole and keep falling until you lose yourself in it. But just try to get the basics down and then just play with it. Another good thing that I've learned to do that actually helps me with lighting is actually find an image online or anywhere. I know a lot of these Discord channels, a lot of people post up, not safe for work content, which is probably, girls just modeling. Find an image that looks visually impactful, like what's the lighting look like, how like just the different types of lighting in it, and then try to recreate it in DAS with what you have. And then also you just ask people like what they use, what kind of lighting do they use. I use ghost lights, I use HDRIs, I use spotlights, I use it all. It just depends on the look that you're going for in the image itself. But just try to, again, look at other images and try to recreate them in DAS and see how they come out, and just go from there and just practice. Just keep practicing. That's the only thing you can do.
I will say also, as a new artist myself who's had the best trainer, what has helped me is that is not to rely on presets for facial expressions or poses, or use them as a starting point. So one of the things that Kent basically hammered into my skull was that preset facial expressions are usually too exaggerated, and to tone it down. So whatever you think feels right for a big smile, or whatever feels right for a sexy wink or whatever, tone it down about 30%, and then you're probably right on track. Most human facial expression is actually very subtle, and it isn't over the top, but most of the preset packs are. So use them as a frame of reference, and then put your own spin on it. Use the sliders to make them less extreme, and you'll get a lot more across with a subtle facial expression than you will with something that's over the top. That's not to say that I don't enjoy the over-the-top stuff too. I think Power Vacuum is one of my favorite VNs, and the Ahegao sex scenes are some of my favorite, but they're also not particularly realistic, and that's not what the dev is going for.
Right, and that's, to expand on that, is to, if you feel yourself, having a difficult time posing or making a facial expression, do this. Actually make the facial expression or pose yourself. Like stand up from your chair and try to, like, how would you hold a phone? Like if you look at a lot of the images of Alex or anyone using the phone, I actually sit there and I hold my phone in my hand and I try to, mimic how to hold a phone in the game, and I move the sliders around and to make it look like he's actually holding a phone. Try that. That's how you learn. And with the facial expressions, people don't go with a very wide-eyed, open mouth look like every day. It's talking is very subtle. The lips rarely move. They're not exaggerated to like where they're puckering or got a wide open mouth or whatever like that. That's not how we talk. We make very subtle movements with our mouth and use as little as effort as possible.
Since Polygene is a biotech company, any experience in the field yourself, or are you relying on publications in Google?
Publications in Google. I work in the technology industry, so I have a network architecture background, and I'm pretty up to speed on how businesses work at the corporate level. So there is some crossover in understanding like the role of a CFO versus a COO, where those roles generally stratify on this based on the size of the company. I'm a former law enforcement officer. I've got a pretty solid understanding about how the legal system works, at least in the United States. I'm former military, so I've got a fairly solid understanding of how the military works, and so I do go back to a lot of um, individual experience and knowledge when I do this. But when that fails, or when I've got gaps in that, Google and research is definitely definitely my friend.
Chief Rinko will appear next chapter.
Chief what?
Rinko? Or Chef Rinko.
Oh,
God damn it.
Chef Rinko. Yeah, Chef Rinko will appear in the next chapter.
Fucking fixed.
Yeah.
Food play tag? I'm guessing it's supposed to be foot play.
Foot play tag? Yeah, again, I'm not entirely I don't know. We'll see.
Approximately how much money has gone into buying assets for Chasing Sunset so far?
A lot.
If we're talking about assets to include CPU and render, we've probably invested probably 20 grand at least, plus music licensing 25, 30.
Probably.
You guys have almost 10 grand in music licensing?
So the way it works is you purchase the license as an online project through Jamendo or whatever the music provider is, the licensing provider.
Okay.
And then once you the nature of that license changes as soon as we go to Steam, because then we're selling the game.
Gotcha.
And so at that point, we have to upgrade the license from a $15 per song license to a $75 per song license.
Gotcha. I think that's it for now.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the case, and if there are no more questions, thank you everybody for supporting our game, for your interest, for your word of mouth. Kent and I are always just shocked and humbled at the level of interest that it generates. Like we've said many times, we'd be doing this with no patrons at all, because this story is something that's deeply personal to both of us, and to have so many people that are along for the ride and are sharing that interest with us is just it's overwhelming, almost surreal. And to be on a first name basis, or being able to chat up Drifty or CNG or Stu or Naughty Captain or any of these people that were kind of role models to us is absolutely stunning, and Zor too. but all things considered, it's been a fantastic thing for us. We have amazing admins that are in there giving us their opinion every day, and keeping us on the straight and narrow. So the friendships that we've developed along the way have just been unbelievable.
And we can't thank we can't thank the patrons and all the supports enough. We're completely humbled by this. This is, a passion project for us. We would do it, even if we weren't making money at it. It's just something that we want to do and are having fun doing it. And we are just humbled by the amount of interest and the support that everyone has shown from us, patrons and non-patrons. I mean, it's still surreal to see the amount of people who like what we're doing, and it's I couldn't be more happier, and making the friendships that we are making, and getting to meet new and interesting people. And it just wants us it just makes me and Stoya want to do better, and put out something for you guys that you guys will keep enjoying for a long time. And I can't thank like I said, I can't thank you guys enough. I mean, everybody. And me and Stoya helping other devs out along the way. that's that is also kind of crazy. It's very cool to see people asking us for help, and it's a great thing, and it's a great feeling. And again, thank you so much to everybody.
On that note, if there are aspiring new devs out there, I spend an awful lot of my time reviewing new projects for that other people are working on that look like their quality efforts and whatnot. I don't do it as my I use a sock puppet to do it. I don't do it as the Stone Fox account. But if you've got something that you're working on that you're looking for advice on, we've gone through it most recently. So we'll do our best to help out. The only ask is that we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make you drink. So we're not going to. I'm not going to write your story for you, but I can certainly help you understand how I come about the next beat in the story, or what I think is important in kind of developing an interconnected plot. And just like Kent isn't going to be able to show you how to do a render that looks like his, but he can certainly help you understand something that you might be overlooking. And so by all means, reach out to us because, I imagine that that Cap and the CNG derive a certain amount of pride in the fact that their work inspired us, and we only live as long as the last person remembers us. So if we inspire somebody else to do something, then that's in a way a little bit of our legacy too, and we'd love to have that. We'd love to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Anyway, that's all I've got today.
That's all I got too. Like I said, I gotta clean up this room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for spending part of your Saturday with us. We look forward to doing this again 2 weeks after the release of Chapter 3.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you, Zor.
Of course.
Thanks, Zor. And we'll see y'all later.